After 16 years and 7 previous movies, it's hard to come up with new ideas. So for the latest X-Men film, they decided to remake Apocalypse Now with X-Men characters. A joke or not, don't tell me you wouldn't see that movie. That should be a prerequisite for remaking any movie. You need to throw something in completely out of left field. Instead of just remaking RoboCop, remake it with Carl Winslow from Family Matters as RoboCop. Instead of remaking Point Break, make it where Keanu Reeves plays every single character. Instead of just remaking Ghostbusters with women, remake it with a cast of Golden Girls. Yeah, I know they're dead, but they could be ghosts who bust other ghosts, and then thank them for being a friend. X-Men Apocalypse is the latest film in the X-Men franchise. Once again, it's directed by Bryan Singer, who directed the first 2 X-Men films, as well as Days of Future Past, and starring James McAvoy, Michael Fassbender, Jennifer Lawrence, and Oscar Isaac. Ali Sheedy is also in the movie, so that's pretty cool. No dandruff snowflakes, though. This movie takes place in 1983, about 10 years after the past events of X-Men Days of Future Past. In the movie, Apocalypse comes into modern day, or modern day at the time, 83, and wants to start a new world, essentially. And of course that means kill a bunch of people. Apocalypse is played very menacingly and very well by Oscar Isaac. He has a great screen presence. He's very intimidating anytime he's on the screen. That's a large part due to the makeup, the voice that they decided to go with, as well as, of course, Oscar Isaac's performance. The movie starts very much like a getting the team together kind of movie, like something like Major League, where they're kind of going out and recruiting different people for each side. Apocalypse is getting his 4 horsemen, and the X-Men are getting some new additions, like Nightcrawler and Cyclops. This movie really has solid acting all around, with Isaac, McAvoy, and Fassbender really being the standouts to me. Especially Fassbender, who has some really kind of gut-wrenching scenes that he has to give, and has different layers and emotions that he really needs to bring to the character, and does really wonderfully, as he's done in the past 2 movies. The action in this movie is shot really well, with 2 particular standout scenes for me. There is a scene early on in the movie which is a cage match, reminiscent of when you're introduced to Wolverine in the first X-Men film. And then there's, of course, another Quicksilver scene, which somehow manages to outdo the Quicksilver scene in Days of Future Past, which is no small feat. Speaking of Quicksilver, he's in the movie a lot more than he was in Days of Future Past, which is definitely a welcome addition. He provides a lot of comic relief and charm throughout the movie. And speaking of comic relief, it's actually sprinkled throughout the movie quite well. It's done in the right amounts, and I really enjoyed the funny bits to the movie. The ending fight scene in the movie I think is done really well. Every character gets their moment to shine and kind of show their powers. There is one weird kind of thing where Professor X punches somebody, and I think that was weird. It just doesn't look right to see Professor X punching somebody. I kind of get what they were going for, so it doesn't really bother me that much, but it's just a little weird to see that happen. But the visuals during that fight scene are really cool and pretty stunning, actually. I think the CGI on the whole is done really well in this movie. I've heard some people complain about the tone in the movie, and I really don't understand those complaints. To me, this movie really feels just like the first 2 X-Men movies and Days of Future Past, where it has that kind of a tone to it. It's mostly serious with some, comedic elements sprinkled throughout, but it feels like that universe, like it should. I don't understand the knocking of it. It's something that's already established. It doesn't really make sense to go completely different in tone. When you do that, you get something like, fucking X-Men 3 or X-Men Origins Wolverine, where it's like too campy. But this to me, it felt like an X-Men movie. Now, this isn't a knock against the movie, it's really a knock against the marketing team, who ruined a nice little surprise in the movie by the last trailer. So if you haven't watched the last trailer, don't watch it. It ruins a really cool scene, and I don't know, just don't fucking watch it. There's also some TV spots I saw, luckily after I saw the movie, that ruin it. They show way too much, like a lot from the ending, and it's fucking terrible. There are some issues I do have with the movie, and it's an issue kind of with timeline and the age of the characters. So X-Men First Class took place mainly in 1962, and a lot of the same actors are returning. So you have Michael Fassbender, James McAvoy, Jennifer Lawrence, and the guy that played Havoc, and Nicholas Hoult too. So they all return. Fassbender and McAvoy, to me, aren't as much of an issue, although I think they could have done things to make them look older, because now it's 21 years later, so they should look that much older, and they really don't. Those two I don't have as much of a problem with. The bigger problem I have is with Nicholas Hoult, who is 26, but in the movie universe should be like mid to late 40s, and they don't really do anything to make him look that age. He's bad enough, but then when you get to Havoc and Cyclops, that's fucked up. Lucas Till, the actor that plays Havoc, is 25, but his character is supposed to be in his mid to late 30s in this movie, and he has a brother, played by Ty Sheridan, who's only 6 years younger than him in real life. So Ty Sheridan's 19, Lucas Till is 25, but their characters' ages are supposed to be about 20 years apart, which doesn't make sense for how they look. They look pretty damn close to the same age, and also for their relationship. How are they that far apart and still kind of act like brothers? Because really it'd feel more like an uncle or parent relationship at that age. But it's weird. I don't know why they would have done it like that. Maybe Havoc's from a first marriage, Cyclops is from a second marriage. That would make a little more sense for the age difference, but wouldn't make that much sense for kind of their relationship. Jennifer Lawrence, however, I really don't think is a problem. Mystique doesn't really age at the same rate as everybody else, so she can look her age and it's fine for me. I don't really give two shits. So the age isn't a problem for me with Jennifer Lawrence. What is a problem, though, is she's not really dressed like Mystique for most of the movie. She looks like Jennifer Lawrence in 80s garb, so at least she looks, time frame appropriate. There's a few lines that kind of go into why she doesn't look like her blue self for most of the movie, but I think that that's some bullshit, and it bothers me. She's Mystique. She should look like Mystique. Maybe if she comes back for the next one, they'll fucking make her get in blue makeup all the time, because that is how she should look. Rebecca Romijn Stamos had like 2 appearances in the first 3 movies where she looked like herself, and they were brief. With that being said, I think there's way more good in this movie than there is bad, and I don't get the mixed to negative reactions this movie's had. I think right now it sits at about a 49% approval rating on Rotten Tomatoes, which is crazy to me. That's saying that X3 is a better film than this movie, which is fucking blasphemy. X-Men Apocalypse is rated A-. So being that there are now 8 movies in the X-Men franchise, and no, I'm not counting Deadpool, name your favorite movie. Mine is X-Men 2. I think that one just kind of elevated it to a new level, and the Wolverine mansion fight scene and just kind of everything in that movie was pitch perfect and just great. So again, name your favorite X-Men film. Make your mark below in the comment section. Please like, share, and subscribe, and thank you so much for watching. Joke or not, don't tell me you wouldn't see that movie. That should be a prerequisite. Speaking of Quicksilver, he's in the movie a lot more than Days of Future Past, which is definitely a welcome addition. He provides some great comic release. He releases the comics. Go, Louis C.K. Go! Chris Rock, Daniel Tosh, Chappelle.